Hello and welcome to the Coming Down to Earth with Spirit podcast with me, your host, David Hale. In the podcast, we'll be talking about mediumship and all things spiritual in a down-to-earth and honest kind of way, with a touch of humour also. So I hope you can join me on my podcast journey so you can learn from my own spiritual journey and experiences with spirit in the aim to help you on your own spiritual journey, or it may just be to answer any of those questions that you have about the spiritual world. So join me now as we get into this episode. Well, hello everybody. Well, what a sad day to wake up to today. Waking up to the news that comedian, drag queen, author, TV presenter, activist, Paul O'Grady, also known as Lily Savage, has sadly passed away. And I wasn't planning on doing any podcast today at all, but I felt like I wanted to do my own little tribute to him. And look, I'm not a family member. I'm not some long lost friend who's not seen him for a long time. I never met Paul. I never got the opportunity to meet Paul or Lily Savage, even when I was a drag queen. But I wanted to do my own little tribute because he was a big part of my growing up. And there's still a part of me that just can't quite believe he's gone. And I think we all know those people in life that, whether they're friends or family members, that it's almost like we never expect them to pass because of the energy that they have about them. He seemed to, with all the heart attacks that he had, he survived them. And you think if he could survive that and survive the life that he's had, he can survive anything. And just one of those people you'd look at and think, oh, we could live forever. So it's still a little bit shocking to know that he's not here physically anymore. And look, I've not planned to say anything particular in this podcast. I've got no script. I never do have a script anyway, but it's just going to come from me, from the heart, I guess. So if it does seem a bit bitty and a bit all over the place, then that's just how it is, right? I just wanted to give my my little tribute to Paul. And I first remember becoming aware of Lily Savage. I was very young. I was a young teenager back in the 90s. And I remember a friend and we rented the video, and this is going to show my age now, this goes back. We rented a video from the video store, and it was the old VHS tape. And I remember we watched the video, and I think it was one of his live videos that came out. And we watched, it was only 13, 14 at that time, about 13, 14. And we howled with laughter. We found it so hilarious. And I was aware of him because my mum used to watch him, and my mum liked him. And, it's funny that I look back now, and although we watched him in drag, it wasn't like, we didn't sit there thinking, oh, I'm watching a drag queen. We were just watching Paul because you saw what you got with him. Yes, Lily Savage, his alter ego, was a character, but it was him. He didn't change his voice. It sounded exactly the same. As soon as he opened his mouth, you knew exactly who it was. And from that point, at the age of 13 or 14, this was long before I realised that I was a homosexual, before any of that time. But from that moment, I'd watch, I'd really enjoy watching him on TV. And even still now, even up until maybe about a month ago, I was watching the reruns of the outtakes of Lily Savage's Blankety Blank. And I've actually got a playlist on my YouTube channel of all the outtakes I can find of Lily's Blankety Blank, because even the outtakes are hilarious because Paul is just Paul. There's no pretense there. I've recently finished reading one of his books, which I'm not a big reader, but I've read three of his 3 chapters. I know there's a fourth installment which I've not actually read, but I read the third one. I finished it a couple of months ago. And I'd lie in bed reading the book and I'd start laughing to myself. My other half looks at me, think, "Are you all right? Have you lost the plot finally?" But no, I'm just like, this book's making me laugh because he was a great storyteller and he was very honest with it. And you can imagine him saying those things or being in that situation at the time that it happened. And it was just a great tonic for the soul So, and that's why I used to watch him, because he'd make me laugh. And again, I didn't look at him because he was a gay man or he was a drag queen. It was someone who was down to earth, funny. And that I feel was him. And again, I didn't know him personally, but anyone that's got a working pair of eyeballs and any sense of intuition could see and can tell that he was very down to earth. He was very quick-witted and very humorous, but he was never cruel with it. So he would cut people down to size, but he wouldn't be vicious with it. It was just funny. And there's a great podcast of an interview that he did with Attitude magazine. And if you get a chance to go and look at it, I might put it in the link in the description here. But I've listened to it about 6 times. And it's a great interview where he was very honest. He mentions all some of the harder times back in the 80s where the pubs he worked at were raided by the police purely because there were gay people in there, and they came in wearing rubber gloves. And this new generation, these new youngsters that come up, have no idea, unless they do the research, where we've come from, how far we've come. We've still got a long way to go, but Paul was at the forefront of a lot of that, or most of that, in the 80s. And he continued that throughout his career. And then, if I skip ahead a few years, when I was 20, I think I was 24, I started doing drag. And it wasn't because of Paul, it wasn't because of any drag queen. Unlike this bollocks we've got today where people are saying, oh, don't go near that drag queen because they're trying to make you a drag queen, they're trying to make you gay. No, they're not. Take your head out of your ass. It's ridiculous. Drag, for me anyway, was a job. It was fun, but it's a job. And that's how I believe that's how Paul saw it as well, which is why eventually he stopped, because he was fed up getting in and out the drag. And I can level with him on that situation there. But yeah, I remember I started doing drag, and there were 3 of us. We were a drag trio called the Florettes. Some of you may have heard of us. And I do remember one of the very first shows that I did within the group was at the Black Cap in Camden. And I remember, because the venue is a very famous venue, unfortunately, sadly, not there anymore. But I do remember going into that venue before we went on stage, thinking to myself, wow, Lily Savage has performed here. And many other venues that we did as a group in London as well, Lily Savage had already treaded those boards and set the trends and all that business. So I always had that in mind, especially in the Black Cap there. That one of my very first shows, and I knew he'd performed there as well. And I've watched him as Lily Savage. I've watched him as Paul. Now even back to the TV shows like Paul O'Grady's America, Paul O'Grady's Orient. Some of them episodes are on YouTube. Go and check them out. I remember at the time when they came out, I was able to burn the episodes onto a disc, and I've got that disc at home. And actually, it was only a couple of months ago again that I was watching them in bed on the DVD player, watching Paul O'Grady get rat-assed around the Orient, which is very, very funny. But yeah, what a legend, what a trailblazer, what a human being. And I hope he's gonna go to the spirit world. I know that anyway, but still, there's always that sense of, oh my God, it's not here anymore. Again, one of those people that seem to have this continued life energy that you look at a person, you think, well, I can't imagine them not being here, if that makes sense. But what an icon, what a legend. A lot of these drag queens these days could learn a lot from Lily Savage. And I'm sure, and I know there are lots of drag queens out there. Some of my favourites, like Sandra, for example. Drag with No Name. Who else is there? I can't think of any more. Mine's gone blank. But there are a lot of great drag queens out there, British drag queens out there who work their asses off. And I know who take a lot of inspiration from Lily Savage. So may Lily's influence and inspiration continue, and my hearts go out to his partner and his family and friends, especially his daughter and his grandchildren as well. But May you fly high, may you continue to make people upstairs laugh, may you still keep them in check if they need keeping in check. But what a legend. May you rest in peace. And yeah, that's my little tribute for today. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you all soon.